In the vast, swirling tapestry of Yoruba myth, where gods dance with the winds and rivers whisper ancient truths, there lived a god who spoke not with thunder or flame, but with silence. His name was Obanani, the god of loyalty, of sacred vows, of love that stayed even when everything else left. He was not the strongest god, nor the loudest. He did not command armies, nor did he shape mountains. But in a pantheon of might and magic, his strength lay in constancy. Where other deities burned like fire, Obanani flowed like a river, steady, quiet, enduring. He was the divine symbol of commitment, the invisible thread that held marriages, bonds, and promises together. And for centuries, he had offered his heart to only one. Oshun. She, the river goddess. The Orisha of fertility, beauty, sensuality, and mystery. Her laugh could seduce the rain. Her smile, they said, made flowers bloom from bare earth. She moved like a melody, graceful, intoxicating, free. And Obanani adored her. To love Oshun was to chase the sun while standing still. She was not his possession. She was never meant to be caged. And yet, for reasons only the gods understand, she let Obanani stay by her side. For a time, they flowed together. He, with his quiet devotion. She, with her dazzling unpredictability. Theirs was a dance of opposites, peace and passion, depth and dazzle. But even in the divine realm, peace is fragile. In the far reaches of the heavens, another god stirred. Shango, the Orisha of thunder and war, had long watched Oshun with a desire as fierce as lightning. Unlike Obanani's still waters, Shango was a storm. Bold, daring, reckless, and undeniably magnetic. He admired Oshun not with reverence, but with hunger. He made no secret of his intentions. Where Obanani whispered, Shango roared. And Oshun? She heard both. There is a certain cruelty in being loved by two gods. One offered her peace. The other offered her fire. Oshun's heart, complex as the river's bend, felt the pull of both. She did not mean to cause pain. But gods, too, are flawed. They feel deeply, and they falter. Obanani noticed the change. The way Oshun's eyes lingered too long on Shango's storms. The laughter that once belonged to him alone now echoed with uncertainty. He tried to hold on to her with kindness. With patience. With loyalty. But love, when torn in two, begins to fray. And so began the unraveling of a god. Obanani was not jealous. Not in the way mortals understood it. But he felt the ache of fading love in every corner of his being. He was a god, yes, but his soul ached like any man's would. Each time Oshun glanced away. Each time her laughter became distracted. Each time she returned to the river and did not look for him first. It was like being unstitched, thread by sacred thread. The river goddess had not abandoned him. Not yet. But her silence spoke louder than words. And for a god whose power came from loyalty, the threat of losing that bond was unbearable. He would sit by her sacred waters long after she had left. Watching her footprints disappear in the soft river mud. Trying to understand where he had gone wrong. He had never strayed. He had never faltered. He had given her the truest devotion the heavens had ever seen. But love, he would soon learn, is not about how much you give. It's about whether the other heart is still open to receive it. And in that realization, despair crept in. One night, under the ancient sky lit with ancestral stars, Obanani climbed the steep path toward the grove of truth. It was a sacred place, veiled in mystery. There, within a ring of eternal baobab trees, sat Orunmila, the Orisha of wisdom. Orunmila did not speak often. But when he did, his words carved paths through fate itself. Obanani approached with heavy steps. The silence of his pain louder than any war drum. He fell to one knee and bowed his golden head. Orunmila, he whispered, my heart no longer feels whole. I have loved Oshun for centuries. I have stood beside her as river stands beside stone. But now, I feel her slipping. I fear I am no longer enough. The wise Orisha remained quiet, eyes closed. As if listening not just to Obanani's words, but to the vibrations of his soul. Finally, he opened his eyes, eyes older than time. Eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. You have given much, Obanani, he said, voice low and even. But devotion, without balance, becomes a chain, one that binds not just the beloved, but the one who offers it. Then what must I do? Obanani pleaded. What must I offer to restore what we once had? Orunmila looked deep into his spirit. If you truly wish to show your loyalty, then be ready to give up what you hold most dear. But know this, love should never demand destruction. Obanani returned to the river the next morning. His spirit torn between clarity and madness. He found Oshun sitting by the banks, her golden skin shimmering under the dawn light. She was quiet. Pensive. Her beauty more distant than divine. Oshun, he said, voice trembling. I cannot bear to see you pulled between two gods. I have no storm to offer you. No thunder in my veins. But I have this, my truth. My loyalty. Oshun turned to him slowly, her eyes already damp. Obanani, you have always been faithful. But Shango's fire calls to a part of me I can't silence. I never wanted to hurt you. Her words were soft. But to Obanani, they were thunder. He felt the ground shift beneath him. The sky no longer felt familiar. And in that moment, desperation took the place of reason. He stepped closer. If words cannot show you my heart, he whispered. Then perhaps, this will. And with one swift, devastating motion, he reached to his ear. And severed it. Blood spilled into the river. The air froze. Oshun gasped in horror, hands trembling. He held the ear out to her with reverence and sorrow. Take it, he said. My hearing. My wisdom. Let this be proof that I will never stop listening to you. Even if it costs me everything. The river grew still. The trees fell silent. Even the wind dared not speak. Oshun collapsed to her knees. Tears falling like rain. Obanani, she cried, I never wanted this. I never needed this. But it was too late. The act had been done. And the gods had already begun to watch. The blood touched the sacred river and shimmered. Not red. But gold. The essence of a god spilled into Oshun's domain. A realm where waters flowed with seduction, joy, and fertility. But that morning, it flowed with something new. Sacrifice. Obanani stood in silence, his arm trembling, his eyes burning, not with pain, but with longing. His golden skin glistened with divine blood. His ear, the symbol of his wisdom and balance, was now gone. And with it, a part of himself. Oshun could barely meet his eyes. Her breath caught in her throat. She had always known Obanani's love was deep. But never imagined it could drown them both. She reached for him, then pulled back. Not because she didn't care. but because she didn't know how to carry the weight of what he had done. "Why would you do this?" she whispered. "I never asked you to bleed for me." Obanani's voice was faint. "Because you are everything. And I was losing you." He fell to his knees, his body shaking. But the river surged. A pulse of power rose from its depths. A blinding golden light erupted around Obanani, lifting him off the ground. The gods felt it instantly. From the peaks of Orunmala's grove to the storm-drenched halls of Shango's temple, a wave of spiritual force trembled through the cosmos. The sacrifice had awakened something ancient. Something sacred. Obanani's form twisted in midair, his body reshaping with divine agony. His hair flowed like rivers. His skin glowed with ethereal shimmer. His once gentle face now bore the mark of sorrow, the hollow where his ear had been. And yet, from that void, a new power stirred. The power of unbearable love. He returned to the ground, transformed. His feet barely touched the earth. His aura brighter, but heavier. Oshun stared at him, stunned. He was still Obanani. But not the one she had loved. She reached out to him, but stopped. He no longer looked at her with need. He looked through her. As if the love he had once offered her had become something divine, unreachable, and tragic. Across the heavens, the Orishas gathered in silent council. Orunmala, ever wise, spoke first. He has become something else. Loyalty incarnate. But love, when forced to prove itself through pain, ceases to be love. Shango remained silent. He had won nothing. Oshun had not run into his arms. In fact, her spirit seemed dimmed. Even the god of thunder could not celebrate this. He stared at the ground and muttered. He gave everything, and lost himself. The other gods nodded, sobered by what they'd witnessed. Not all power comes from conquest. Some power is the kind that breaks you. Back by the river, Oshun returned day after day. Sometimes she spoke. Other times she simply watched Obanani from a distance. He did not approach. He had become a statue carved from grief and grace. A god among gods. But not a man in love anymore. She felt it in her bones. What had once been vibrant had gone still. And though his sacrifice had changed the heavens, it had shattered the space between them. She sat by the river's edge, knees tucked beneath her, voice barely audible. "I never needed your ear, Obanani. I needed your presence. Your laughter. Yourself." Tears welled in her eyes. "I wanted you to love me. Not disappear inside that love." The river wept with her. Its currents swirled with memory. And the wind carried her sorrow to the gods above. In their domain, the Orishas watched, powerless. For even gods could not mend what had already been broken by love's extremes. Time passed. The river flowed again, but not as before. Its songs were lower. Its ripples slower. Obanani remained by its banks. Not as a lover waiting to be chosen, but as a god learning to become whole again. He no longer reached for Oshun. He no longer pleaded with Orunmala. He no longer bled. Instead, he listened. Not with ears, but with spirit. He began to walk alone at twilight, feeling the earth beneath his feet, touching the water, whispering to the trees. And slowly, something returned to him. Not Oshun, but himself. One evening, a soft breeze carried Oshun's scent. She approached quietly, unsure of her place beside him. He turned to her, not with longing, but with peace. "You are radiant as ever," he said softly. Oshun smiled, but it faded quickly. "I still don't understand why you did it," she said. Obanani looked toward the river, his voice steady. "Because I thought that if I gave more, I could keep the love we had. But I've learned. Love given out of fear is not love. It's a wound waiting to deepen." She lowered her gaze. "You were never not enough for me," she whispered. "And yet," he replied, "I wasn't enough for myself." A quiet settled between them. Not cold. Not angry. Just, real. Oshun stepped closer. "I've missed you," she said. "I've missed me too," he replied with a gentle smile. From that day, things changed. They did not become what they once were. But they found something new. Not a burning romance, but a sacred understanding. They sat together again, sometimes in silence, sometimes in conversation. Two deities, side by side. Not bound, but balanced. The gods took notice. Word of Obanani's journey began to spread across realms. Not for his sacrifice, but for what he had learned after. His pain became his wisdom. His loss, his compass. And his story, a mirror. Young gods came to him seeking guidance. One, bright-eyed and full of passion, once asked, "Obanani, how do I prove my love?" He smiled softly. "You don't prove love," he said. "You share it. You offer it freely. But you never lose yourself in the process." "But what if they don't return it?" the young god asked. Obanani placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then love them enough to let go. And love yourself enough to stay whole." Years turned into centuries. And Obanani became something more than a god of loyalty. He became a guide. A healer. A reminder. In temples, people would whisper his name when promises were made. In villages, his story was passed down as both myth and warning. "Do not give so much that you vanish," the elders would say. Even the gods must protect their hearts. Obanani's tale lived on. Not as a tragedy, but as a transformation. For loyalty, in its truest form, is not about sacrifice. It's about balance. To love someone fully, you must first know your own worth. So now I ask you, would you give up part of yourself to prove your love? Or would you trust that true love never needs proof? Only presence. This was the story of Obanani. The god who loved too deeply, and found himself in the aftermath. Thank you for watching African Mythology Chronicles. If this story touched something in you, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes in the power of love and myth. Tell us in the comments. Which African god or goddess should we explore next? Until then, stay wise. Stay grounded. And remember, love is divine. But never forget to love yourself, too.